And Rob, this past weekend, I actually filled in for Chris Carter on First Things First on Friday because he was at the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, for their weekend of inductions.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Hall of Fame game, the inductions. And
CC,
obviously,
a Hall of Famer.
You didn't know that?
No, I said
you
CC.
said that like you
no,
did.
I'm saying CC, a Hall of Famer. Like, that's why I was there.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Not like that.
Okay. And, of course, the highlight of that weekend are the speeches. And we have seen, in the past, you remember Kellen Winslow, who spoke out strongly about the need, for affirmative action.
Loved his speech.
In his speech, I can't remember what year it was, but he spoke out strongly about that. And we've seen, some great just speeches. I mean, it's always great to see what a guy's going to come up with, whether they're thanking their families, their parents, they're talking about their upbringing, thanking coaches, just reminiscing about some of the great times with teammates, the challenges they've overcome. It's always great. It was really a tearjerker this year for sure. And Ed Reed really, was it Friday night was the Hall of Fame game? And that's when he stole the show by wearing a T-shirt. They typically wear the Hall of Fame polos.
Right.
But he didn't wear it, and he wore a T-shirt with the pictures of all or certainly many of the African Americans, the unarmed African Americans who had been shot down by police, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, so on and so forth. Chandra Bland were on his T-shirt and others as well. And then in his speech, he mentioned mental health and how, that's something that we really need to take care of and try to address as a nation. And then Champ Baily went even a step further and really talked emotionally about, African-American players. Obviously so many of them are in the Hall of Fame. The NFL itself is almost 70% black. The NBA is near almost 80%, about 75% black.
Right.
And Champ Baily talked about, we obviously see some racism in society. And he talked about how the same aggressiveness and size that African-American men in particular are celebrated for on the football field oftentimes is something that is used as an excuse to look down on them, mistreat them, and fear them in general society. Fear them to a point where it could even end a life in their lives. And so here's what Champ Baily said about that in his Hall of Fame speech.
The first thing people see when they look at me is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer or a husband or a father. They view me first as a black man. So on behalf of all the black men that I've mentioned tonight and many more out there who've had the most of the same experiences I've had in my lifetime, we say this to all of our white friends. When we tell you about our fears, please listen. When we tell you we're afraid for our kids, please listen. When we tell you there are many challenges we face because of the color of our skin, please listen. And please do not get caught up in how the message is delivered. Yes, most of us are black men or are athletes, but we are black men first. Understand this. The things that make us great on the field, like our size and our aggression, are the same things that can get us killed off the field. I believe if we start listening, there's no telling the progress we can make. All of us are dads, sons, brothers, your friends. We all understand that if we can't get our friends to listen, then no one will. And to my black brothers, if you do not have anything positive to say about our social challenges, please keep your mouth shut.
All right, Rob.
I love the last
I'm gonna let
part.
you take it first. Right.
No, I do.
Go ahead, man.
No, I think that when you're given the mic and it's your moment, you get to talk about whatever it is you want. Doesn't have to be football. Some people go, it's the Hall of Fame. I don't want to hear about that. It's supposed to be only about football. No, it's not. And I tell people, stop using that as an excuse because it's not true. If it was only about football, they wouldn't wear pink cleats and pink socks. They wouldn't wear it at a football game. That's for breast cancer awareness. I'm not against it, but don't act like we only care about football. We don't. When the NFL took away the Super Bowl from Arizona, you know why they took it away? Because they didn't have the Martin Luther King holiday. What does it have to do about football, Chris? Nothing. So it can't only be when it's something that you can make money off of or something that you can stick your chest out and feel good about. I love that those guys were willing to take their moment in the sun and talk about stuff that really matters. That might be the only time that those guys will have the attention of masses and millions of people, Chris. That's the right platform. That's the right stage. Talking to your buddies in the barbershop, it's not going to change anything. Everybody you're talking to in your family in the barbershop, they know it. Talk to the masses. You have their undivided attention. Are they going to get up and walk out, Chris? No. I loved every minute of it, and I thought it was the right time and the right moment.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like you said, at that time, it's your moment. You can say whatever you want in your time that is allotted. And generally, and I fall into this category too, and I'm sure you probably do. Most people do. When someone speaks out about social issues that we agree with, we love it. And when they speak out, an athlete, an entertainer, or somebody speaks out about social issues that we don't agree with, we hate it.
You're right.
Or we don't like it.
And you tell them, oh, be quiet. Just play ball. We don't want to hear that.
Here's the thing, Rob. The social issues that Champ Baily addressed, or issue, everyone in this country should agree with. Innocent men and sometimes children or women being killed by our police force. A large segment, 12, 13% of the population fearing that when their children go outside, or even them as adults go out, there's a possibility that something could go the wrong way and they could get killed. And part of the problem, well, let me get to this point. I like that Champ Baily addressed our white friends, the white fans that cheered him and cheered Ed Reed and cheered Tony Gonzalez and all the other players of color who were celebrated at the Hall of Fame. Because of the fact that white Americans are nearly 65% of the population in this country, because they have well over 90% of the wealth in this country, because they run all of the economic and judicial institutions in this country, they have to address these situations as well. It can't just be African Americans. I like that Steve Kerr has spoken out against racial injustice. I like that Greg Popovich has spoken out against racial injustice. There were whites that marched with Martin Luther King and helped the civil rights gains that were earned in the 60s. I'm telling you, these owners in the NFL and the NBA, if they spoke out Forget giving the players $90 million. That was nice of the NFL owners. But if they just spoke out passionately about the racial injustice that they see, that their players are wearing T-shirts about and kneeling about, if they spoke to their politician friends, if they spoke to their lawmaking friends, the chiefs of the police departments passionately and said, this has got to stop, it would stop. I mean, there obviously could be accidents here or there, but for the most part, it would stop. And so Champ Baily was right on the money in saying, look, I know this is not your experience. So you think it's all, you can't imagine, being afraid of the police or being, mistreated for no reason by law enforcement. But believe us when we tell you, because it's happening. And I'm going to say this, Rob. I'm reading a book. I said I went to the beach this weekend.
Right.
And I was reading a book called Waking Up White and Finding Myself in the Story of Race. It's by Debbie Irving. She's a white woman that grew up very, very privileged. I mean, far more privileged than most white people. And she talked about how she discovered she had always tried to work with African Americans and help them, and there was always tension, and it just never seemed right. And then she really began to learn true American history. She learned about the GI Bill and how in her own family, when her father came back from World War II, that the GI Bill allowed him to get subsidized housing and free tuition to college and law school. Okay? And how the GI Bill was virtually, even though there wasn't an official law, but the way it was carried out, no African Americans who had fought in the war, a very tiny percent, only like 2% of the GI Bill's monies went to African Americans, even though millions had fought in that war. Or hundreds of thousands.
Right.
Or thousands. So that she began to recognize what we talk about when we say white privilege. And part of the problem in our country is that we're learning two different histories. We learn typical American history, which glorifies it. And then African Americans, we know our own history that is generally not really taught to the public in schools in really all of its entirety. And so that is the root of the problem. So I would recommend to all of our listeners, white, black, whatever your race, check that book out, Waking Up White by Debbie Irving. It's a great book to read. And I think understanding what she's talking about can help us heal this racial divide that's been in this country since its existence and before.
I will always applaud people who just will stand up. And you just mentioned Steve Kerr, Pop. There are guys who are just, you know what, they're a basketball coach, but our bigger, I always say the only thing worse, Chris, than the bad guys are when good people turn away and don't do anything. They're worse than those guys. Because when you do that, you allow that stuff to go on because it's not happening to you.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? That's not the way it's supposed to be. You know right from wrong, and you should not turn your back. And the good people, and we've seen this, civil rights, Chris, it wasn't just black people out there. Go watch the video. Go watch it. The Underground Railroad with slaves.
Right.
White people facilitated that.
Yes.
So those were good people, honest people who didn't believe in what was going on and were willing to do what was right. That's all it is.
All right. What do you guys think? 877-99 on Fox. Should more athletes use their platforms to promote social change? Did you like what happened at the Hall of Fame speeches? We'll continue the conversation with you next.
Deontay in Virginia, you're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. What's happening?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I really appreciate y'all for taking my call. I listen to you guys all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
And I love what you're doing. Please keep doing it. Keep doing it.
All right, what's your take?
Yeah, I agree with everything. It's kind of hard to talk about this. It's not hard to talk about the subject, but it's just living in fear in this country. I don't even know what to say. It's when you're in fear of your child, and when they go out, you pray and you try to raise your children the best way that you can. And it's like nowadays, even back then, during the segregation and everything, you had to raise your children. And it's kind of like history repeating itself.
No doubt about it. We appreciate the call. He's emotional, and he's right.
The emotion.
Yeah,
man.
Chris,
That's
you know
real.
that. You have kids. They got to go out. You have 2 daughters, but it doesn't matter. You have kids.
Right.
You just don't know. You could be, we've seen the video. And thank God we talk about social media all the time being bad. Thank God, Chris, we've seen some of this stuff, and everybody has a phone now.
I gotta be honest,
Right?
Rob. I think these types of killings have actually decreased because now you do have social media. 20 years ago, we weren't seeing any.
We didn't see it. We heard about it, but we didn't see it. Yes.
So and so was reaching for a gun.
Yes.
Or so,
or they had a gun, or they got violent.
Right.
Absolutely.
So now we're seeing the truth.
All right, Jeff in Cincy, you're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio.
Thanks,
what you
guys.
got, Jeff?
I really appreciate for taking my call. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I follow you guys on all the social media stuff, YouTube, everything. But I like the fact that I don't have a problem with them using the platform at all. My problem is I want to see like some officials or somebody that can make a real difference and like do something to move it forward. Like I think they've brought it to the forefront, and I think that a lot of people are ready to see some kind of solution be done to get these kind of cops off the street.
But
these are people that can't mediate, they can't deal with people, or they got some kind of they got bullied in high school, and now they're going to be a cop and they're going to show everybody. And that's where we get these situations from. I don't have a problem with celebrities using their platform at all. I just wish that we could see it progress. I mean, all that money the owners said they were going to give to help with this situation, where's it going? What are we doing?
Right.
Like, I want to see it keep going, and so we can get a solution.
That's a great point. That's why I said,
Thanks for the call, Jeff.
if these owners did that, really spoke out passionately about this, Rob, not just give money, but spoke to the people in power, because they can get to the people in power, it would change.
No doubt. I want to hear, we got Greg in Virginia Beach. He says some sort of double standard. I want to hear what he has to say. You're on The Odd Couple, Fox Sports Radio. Go ahead, Greg. What you got?
You know what, man? I think y'all are doing good. I don't agree with a lot of stuff y'all say, but I'm trying to find it hard to believe y'all. Because one minute you talk about athletes, what they should do and what they stand for. Then when they get out and stand for it, y'all try to chop them down and say, oh, he shouldn't this and that. Especially you, Rob, with LeBron. He's like a LeBron murderer. So, no matter what he does, he's never going to do the right thing, even though he does more for a lot of the athletes that just sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of confused by how I'm going to take y'all. You seriously, what you're saying, what they did was so great this past weekend, but in turn, when other athletes do it, you criticize them and judge them. Like, I don't understand where you're going.
Rob, let me say this on your behalf,
all right,
Rob.
I was going to say, go ahead.
Rob,
thanks, Greg, for the call.
Is known as a LeBron hater. He criticizes LeBron on basketball.
That's
terms.
it.
He's never criticized LeBron on what he's doing in the community, with his school, with his, he might disagree with his children, but that's not what we're talking about. With the getting, on the court at the AAU games and things like that. He's never criticized LeBron and the business endeavors he's doing and
putting
all that.
people to work.
Right.
I know as a small business owner, Chris, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I bought commercial property in the city of Detroit when it wasn't cute to do so. I put people to work. It's on a small scale, but I know what it's about.
Right. And the other thing, Rob, I'm not sure what he's talking about as far as saying we criticize athletes when they speak out, do something? Because we don't. We both have supported Kaepernick.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what he's talking about in
maybe
that
he's talking about other people. You know what I mean? Maybe not. Can we squeeze one more in? Or are we good? Okay, we got to get to the update.
And we want to bring in the Hall of Famer. He gave one of those Hall of Fame speeches, a really great one as well. He's also an FS1 NFL contributor, Rod Woodson. Rod, what's happening, man?
What's going on, guys? Man, I appreciate you having me back on. And, you know, I've been crying every night because I don't get to talk to you guys.
Oh, look at you. Look at you, the Hall of Famer. You ain't crying. We appreciate you.
Crying
you know
all the way to the bank.
I know, right?
And the beach. You probably chilling, taking the off season off. So, but we gonna put you to work with football right around the corner. So we were talking, Rod, about the Hall of Fame and the speeches, of course, this past weekend. Champ Baily, to a certain degree, Ed Reed kind of addressed some social issues. Your Hall of Fame speech was unique. I mean, you addressed family, faith. You know, you really talked a lot about what's important to you. Kind of talk about the thought process that you had and maybe that you think other players have when you're giving that speech.
Because it is your time.
Sometimes are you concerned about, well, if I address this, people might not like it? Or do you just say, hey, this is my time, I'm going to speak about what I want to? How do you approach that?
I mean, you know, when I look at it, if it was a part of my life, then I addressed it. You know, I know that, I know Champ and Ed did talk about some social issues. You know, they felt that it was a need. They felt that they had the right platform to do so. You know, I personally, those social issues have been there forever. I could have addressed them, but my thought was, at least for me, is to try to remember all the people who helped me get to the point where I was at, and that's the Hall of Fame. And that's because you don't do it on your own. You know, no island is on himself. You know, you always have people throughout your childhood, throughout the young adult life, throughout your pro life, that changes your direction in the right way, and trying to get to the point where you address it and you thank each one of them publicly. It's hard to do. It's hard to remember all those guys, and you don't want to forget one of them. So my platform was to do that, to give love to my family, and then at the end of it, to give love to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who took me from rags. He put me through a process, and I've been falling short, but he still loves me anyway.
Rod, I want to ask you. There are some fans and people just like, this is supposed to be about football, and it's only about football. And my only argument to that is, there are way too many things that happen in the NFL that's not just about football. I brought it up earlier. There's breast cancer awareness, where people are wearing pink and selling stuff to raise money. Mm-hmm. And the NFL took away the Super Bowl from the state of Arizona because they didn't have the Martin Luther King holiday. And my only issue is, if it's only about football, then that's fine, but it isn't, and you can't pick and choose which one you want to do and which one. Am I wrong to think that?
No, I mean, everybody, and we have a platform. And you go back to Jim Brown and his stance that he took back in the day for social injustice is still going on.
Right.
And guys have the platform, and we should use the platform. We should use the platform to benefit the positive. And the one thing I do like, and the one thing I like to see more of, is that yes, they're gonna talk about the things that have happened in the past. They're gonna talk about things that have happened in the recent months. I would like to hear guys give solutions. Right. Just like people told LeBron to just shut up and dribble.
Right.
But LeBron is went out and then he has his own school. He does so many things for his community. So those type of things happen every single day. And I want to see more players speak their mind and stand up for the rights of Americans, and stand up for the right for African Americans or people in color in general, and to do the right thing. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it does go against the grain of what people want to hear. But the truth doesn't always feel good, guys.
And you know what? I want to jump right in on this one last thing. Muhammad Ali was one of the most hated people. You remember when he refused to go to war and, the draft dodger and all that other stuff. People don't have short memories. But this guy wound up lighting the torch for this country in the Olympics and went down as an icon all over the world. And he took an unpopular stance. I think people should remember that sometimes.
It takes more strength to take a stance against something that's unpopular than to go with the grain. So I like to see guys taking stances. It shows me that they have a lot of strength. They have a lot of belief in what they are talking about. And hopefully that, those stances, not just from one individual, but from multiple individuals, will help change the course of how things are viewed in our society.
It's the Odd Couple. We're joined by Hall of Famer Rod Woodson. Rod, I want to move to football. I want to ask you about two guys. I'm trying to figure out which one to approach first, Antonio Brown or Andrew Luck. Let me go to Antonio Brown first with the feet problems, all right? Is it, and I'm not saying I'm criticizing him, but is it fair to kind of be like, why didn't he take care of that in the offseason?
Well, I think you're seeing the issue that the Steelers had for years with AB. Tremendous talent, man. We know when he steps on the field, he's giving the defensive backs some headaches. He's giving defensive coordinators headaches. But it's the little things that have rose up in Pittsburgh while he was there, and now they're rising up in Oakland while he's there. And obviously, you should have took care of that back in the offseason, and he didn't. For whatever odd reason, he didn't. And hopefully, it doesn't linger over into the regular season because they need him. They gave him some money to be there, to come in, to be that difference maker for their offense, so they can open up that running game. So, hopefully, somewhere along the line, man, he can be the guy that he's supposed to be for that football team. Hopefully he can show them how to lead in the right direction. At this point, sitting on the sideline, you can't help the team when you're in the tub.
Hey, Rod, the Patriots just gave Tom Brady a retirement package. I don't know why he got a new contract. He had a contract already. Did you see him in the Super Bowl? Why are they giving him more money? I don't understand it.
Isn't it like 2 years, $70 million?
Well, it's only $8 million is really
right. The 2 years are like voidable,
right? I know, but I'm just saying, Rod, it just doesn't make sense to me. The guy's going to be 42. You know how many great quarterbacks have had to go play elsewhere at the end? I understand they love Tom Brady. I watched him in the Super Bowl. He wasn't that good. You can't just live in the past on these guys, can you? Or am I crazy?
I'm not going to. Hey, listen, I think, just for the fact that he's older. But listen, they just wrote a check for 32 teams for $234 million for each team. So giving him giving him some more money at the end of his career, really is thanking him for everything that he's done for that franchise. They got all them rings because of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So if they gave Bill Belichick that money, nobody would argue. But giving Tom the money, everybody's going to argue. So I'm all for players making all the money they can. I like to see Tom make all the money he can. He's still balling at an older age. So that's just letting the young generation know that, his time's not up.
Rod, go ahead. We got 30 seconds left. Andrew Luck, I mean, this calf problem started in April. Now we know he's going to be out for another week at least. Is this something that the coach should really be worried about?
Well, I think what's problematic is that he's been hurt quite often in the last several years. That's problematic. Not just the calf, but the multiple injuries he's had over the last several years makes it'd be a huge concern for me putting the future of the franchise on Andrew Luck because we don't know if he's going to be injured, if he's going to get hurt, and it's odd ends. It's the shoulder, it's the calf. They can be, so you really never know. You just want to make sure that he is going to be that guy for you. That's the hard thing about it. If you're the GM, can you give him another contract after this one to say that he's going to be the future of this franchise for years to come?
Yeah, that's the truth. All right, Rod Woodson with some knowledge.
That's right.
Football-wise and socially. We appreciate
it, man. Some well-said words.
I don't have to cry myself to sleep tonight, man. I'm glad I got to talk to you guys.
There you go.
Hey, you better be careful. We'll be booking you every day.
That's right.
So watch what you're saying.
Thanks,
All right,
bud.
Rod. Peace, man.